Hello, this is Jeff Lumpkin. Today I'm going to do an analysis of drug poisoning mortality by county. This is published by the CDC and is located up on the data.cdc.gov website. It's a 16-year data set down at the county level going from 1999 through 2015. The CDC has done a great job in terms of making this data available. In this instance, I'll come to the export button and find CSV for Excel. Right-click on the CSV for Excel and copy the link. When I come to Power BI Desktop, I will come to the Get Data function, down to Web, and then just paste in that URL. Click OK, and it's going to give me a connection through Power Query to that table, which is up on the CDC website. And I see right away that I want to do some ETL work on this table. So I'm going to edit instead of load it. First step is I'm going to back out the change type. I want to make sure that I have control over what columns I'm changing. So I'm going to click that X, and now let me explain the columns here. FIPS is a geographic code put out by the U.S. Geological Survey. Each county in the U.S. has a unique code. I have year, state, the state abbreviation, FIPS code for each state, and county along with state name. My two data columns are one for population, so that's the total population within the county. The other is the death rate or the mortality rate by bucket. So this bucket starts out at 0 to 2, 2.1 to 4, 4.1 to 6, etc., all the way up to greater than 30. To calculate the number of fatalities, we would take the average of the bucket and multiply it times the population divided by 100,000. So in order to come up with that, I'm going to now make my ETL, take my ETL steps. I'm going to right-click here and change type from text to whole number. Now for the bucket, just for the sake of this exercise, I'm just going to extract the left side of this bucket here. So 10.1 in the first cell, 4.1 in the second. I'll come to add column from examples and simply type in the 10.1. When I do that, Power Query is going to look across all of these columns, identify the 10.1, and then replicate that pattern down the entire column. It looks good to me, so I'll click OK. Now upon further exploration, meaning when I look at all the values in this new column that I've created, I see one which is greater than 30. So when I convert this data type from text to decimal number, this greater than 30 will not convert. To rectify that, I'll replace values. So then type in greater than 30 and replace that with 30. Click OK, and now here, change the type to decimal number. I'll rename this and call this M rate. And then finally, I'll rename the table to NCHS to denote the data source. Click Close and Apply, and now this is going to bring the data down into Power BI Desktop. This is about 53,000 rows, so it's not a huge data set, but there certainly is a lot of information packed into it. Now I'm going to come to the data table view and write a couple formulas. The first will be a new measure where I'm just going to get the average of this M rate column. So average MR equals average, put in the function, and then capture the table name and the column name. Next, I'm going to add a calculated column where I'm going to multiply the mortality rate times the population divided by 100,000. So this will be called fatalities equals population divided by 100,000 times the M rate. So here's my new column. Again, changing the type to whole number. And for the average mortality rate, I'm going to change the type to decimal number. That done, I'm going to add some visualizations. So first, let's just capture the two measures I've written. One is the average mortality rate. The second will be fatalities. So average mortality rate of 8.1 with fatalities of 494,000. Make a graph, which is a bar chart of average mortality rate by year. Add some data labels and resize it. Now copy and paste, so that's Control-C, Control-V. And then I'm going to layer in some more columns. So I'm going to put state above year, and then in between state and year, I'll put county, and then sort by average mortality rate. And lastly, I will get a map where I have fatalities by state. And so in 5 minutes, I really have done a great deal. I have data from the CDC website. I'm maintaining a live relationship to that data. So if I hit refresh, we're going to go up, it's going to get that table and bring down any fresh data that appears there. I also have written measures against that data once it's been brought down and then create these visualizations. So all this has been quite quick. And then out of the box, I can start exploring the data. So if I select 2015, the data is going to change just to show 2015. Were I to select a state, let's say Nevada, the map shows Nevada, we see the mortality rate increasing from 5.4 up to 22.2. And if I want to drill into Nevada, I'll hit the drill in button and now go from state to county to year. So going into Nevada, we see that the biggest county is Nye County in terms of mortality rate. When I select Nye County, we'll go down and we'll look at what happened by year. And I should probably change here the sorting so we're looking at it by year proper. So starting in 1999 and rising to quickly the highest bucket, which is the greater than 30 bucket. And then by undoing the drill down, I can select a single year, which shows up right there in my average mortality rate. So already doing a lot of exploration, but this is just a few minutes. Now, if I spend more time looking at this file, I come up with something that leads to much greater insight. So here is the file that I've worked on, spent 4 or 5 hours working on, and we're able to do a lot more. So in this, I've taken the United States and split it up into 6 regions. Now, before I looked at this data set, my own research and reading had led me to believe that the part of the country which was most severely affected by the opioid epidemic was the Southeast, in this instance, what I'm calling the Atlantic South. So when I select the Atlantic South, watch what happens to the mortality rate. For the nation, it's 15.5. For the Atlantic South region, it jumps to 17.5. So that definitely is higher. It turns out, however, that I was wrong about the region most severely impacted in the U.S. It turns out to be the Southwest, in this case, the Pacific South. And you can see the mortality rate there is 20.7. Now, what was a surprise to me was that learning that the state that had the highest mortality rate was New Mexico. And so when we select New Mexico, you'll watch this 20.7 increase to 26.2. This huge increase. Really quite shocking to see. Now, if I want to learn more about New Mexico, I'm going to use a recently added feature to Power BI, which is the drill through functionality. So I'm going to drill through to the state page, and it's going to bring this New Mexico value with me. So looking now at New Mexico, what I've done is I've added some more information to this data model and included data from the U.S. Census. So here's the data model, which shows U.S. Census tied into the NCHS table. So I'm able to look at many more metrics. In this case, able to look at income per capita, poverty rate, college graduation rates, etc. And what I saw with Rio Arriba County, so this is the county with the highest average mortality rate, is that I see the location within New Mexico. What I observed with Rio Arriba County is that very early on in 2001, Rio Arriba County hit this top bucket, so the highest bucket within this range, meaning greater than 31,000 deaths per 100,000 of population. And looking at this really made me interested in that metric. Which counties had hit this top bucket, and when did that happen? So I created a page just to take a look at that. In this instance, what we're looking at here, this line chart shows the count of counties in the United States when they hit this greater than 30 bucket. So you can see that in 2000, there were no counties at this high bucket. 2001, there were 2 counties, Rio Arriba County being one of them. By 2005, there were only 4 counties. We jump ahead 5 years to 2010, there are 33 counties. And then at the end of the data set, 2015, there are 152 counties. So a more than 4x increase over the last 5 years. And what this line shows to me is that we have an incredibly long ways to go before we're going to, as a country, get a handle on this problem, just because the steepness of this curve shows me that this exponential growth cannot be stopped very easily. So here we are looking at New Mexico, and you can see this is the count from New Mexico. It's a very straight line from 2010 up to 2015. Other states which are badly affected are West Virginia. Just to note, more than half the counties in New Mexico are now at this greater than 30 rate. In West Virginia, 17 counties are at the greater than 30 rate. West Virginia is interesting because this is a somewhat gentler slope, meaning it started earlier and it had a more regular increase over time. In Kentucky, we see again kind of a regular slope. Tennessee is a virtual straight line going from 1 in 2011 up to 15 just 4 years later. This is really frightening data. So I've shown this to some doctors, some medical experts, and they wanted to see the spread mapped of counties greater than 30. So here I'm using an Esri map to show the growth of counties as we started in 2001. So 1 New Mexico, that's Rio Arriba County. The second is McDowell County in West Virginia. And then just clicking through the years, not much increase in 2001, sorry, 2002. So now 2003, we start to see some more pop here in the Appalachian part of the country. And now we really start to see the growth in Appalachia. And it looks like the growth of a virus, this logarithmic increase. So by the end of the data set, we're spread throughout this middle band of the country. And then focusing in Appalachia, just at first glance, it appears that these counties, that these dots are kind of running along routes, along highways or freeways going through these states, meaning it's just spreading from one place to another. And I feel as if I was able to get data down at the address level, we would see the same type of spread, moving down major thoroughfares, penetrating into neighborhoods, etc. So again, looking at the map in this way, it feels like we have a lot of work to do as a nation to seriously address this problem. I'm also able to incorporate a forecast into this data set. So here I'm focused on the state of Idaho and looking at the forecast of the mortality rate and fatalities using the standard R visualizations, which are available from the Office store. So here what we're looking at is the growth of of mortality rate. Overall 16.9 in 2015, expected to hit over 30 for the entire state by the time we get out to 2024. If I select a single county in Idaho, Bear Lake County, everything is going to change, including the R visualizations. And we'll see that it looks like Bear Lake County is just a straight line for Bear Lake County, meaning that it appears somewhat inevitable what's been taking place within that county. Another interesting way to look at this data is to use Sandance. So the way I have the visualization set up now within Sandance, what we're looking at is the mortality rate in 1999. And the center of this is taking place in Appalachia. Now I'll jump ahead to 2009, and you can see the spread appears pretty broad, but this is nothing compared to what happened when we get up to the 2015 data. So the only place that appears at least bit immune to this is the upper Midwest, specifically the Dakotas. But the rest of the country appears really inundated with opioid and other deaths. So I want to come back to the report. I'm going to come back to the landing page, and now I'll publish this out to the Power BI service, and we can take a look at how this could be used once we're up in the Power BI service. So let me come to the Home tab, and now I'll publish this out to my Office 365 workspace. So it's going to take the data set, the measures that I've written, all the visualizations that I've created, and move it up into the Power BI service. And very quickly from there, I will build a dashboard and show some of the other functionality that's available up in the service. So it is finished publishing. I'm going to follow the link, which will take us to the Power BI service. And now we see, here's the Power BI report that I have in the service. I can interact with it in exactly the same way as I can within Power BI Desktop, but I can also create a dashboard, I can share it out, and I can perform some more advanced analytics. So what I'll do now is start to create a dashboard. I will pick a visualization, so I'll get this mortality rate and pin it to a new dashboard. So let's call it DRVYT, pin, and it's going to give me a link to this brand new dashboard that's just been created. I'll follow this visualization back down, pick up the other card with fatalities, and then let's look at getting this graph, which is the average mortality rate and the mortality rate in 2015. So click pin, and when I go to the dashboard, those three elements are there. So I'll resize them, go back down to the report, and pick up some more. So coming to the buckets page, I think this is a pretty interesting bucket. This shows a pretty interesting visualization. This shows how the buckets have changed over time. So when I hit the play button, we're going to start, and you can see the low buckets start out with many, many counties and just steadily decrease. Meaning these counties, counties where there's not a drug problem become fewer and fewer in number across time, while the counties that have serious drug problems, there are more and more of those counties. So I think this is worth looking at. I'll pin this to the dashboard. And then I want to make sure to pin the hockey stick visualization to the dashboard. And let's look at Idaho. So let me look at the Idaho forecast page and just pin what I see as the forecast for Bear Lake County. So I'll select Bear Lake County right here. We'll give the R visualization time to adjust, and then I will pin this to the dashboard. Okay. Then I'll come to the dashboard and find my visualizations. And let me resize them to get the views that I want. Okay, now because we're up in the Power BI service, I'm able to access the more advanced analytics. One of those is ask a question about my data, so Q&A. So the question I'm going to ask is, what is the average mortality rate? 9.1, and then I'll say by year, and it gives me this bar chart, and they'll say as line, and then pick two states. So one is in West Virginia and North Dakota. Okay, two radically different states. Let's pick another one, maybe focusing on Texas. Okay, so now I have these three different states, and I'll pin this visualization to the dashboard. Coming back to the dashboard, I'll put that in a pretty prominent spot. And maybe I want to add a map. So let's go back and get that Esri map. And in this case, I'm going to pin a live page. So I'm going to pin the whole page up to the dashboard. And we can interact with that page right from the dashboard. So now we have the dashboard. Let me come down and get that, and I'll move the Esri map to the upper right. Now that I have this dashboard in the way that I like it, I'm going to make sure it looks good on the phone. So I'll switch from web view to phone view. And this is the view on the phone. And I'll come down, decide, do I want the Esri map? Yeah, actually looks not bad there. Can I drill in on it? Maybe I'll take it out of the phone view. And then I'll take the forecast out. So this is now the way I want it. Let me resize this so it matches the other view. And I'm good to go with this visualization, or with this layout in the phone view. Now back to the web view. And I now have a fully functioning and shareable dashboard. So this is how, in very few minutes, I can start to do a lot of advanced analytics about the opioid or the drug epidemic in the U.S. and get a lot of detail at the state level, the county level, or the national level. I hope this has been interesting for you. Thanks very much.